Gentlemen, what is going on today? My name is Ryan Mickler. I'm your host and the founder of the Order of Man podcast and movement. I'm glad you're here today. And I really don't care if you've been listening for a long time or a very short period of time. I want you to be here. This is a movement to help you become a better man. I'm on the path, same as you. I excel in some certain areas, same as you. And I fall behind in certain areas, same as you. Guys, we're all in this together. We want to provide you with the tools, resources, conversations that you need to thrive. So we have this podcast where we interview successful men, scholars, athletes, warriors, New York Times best-selling authors. I mean, you name it. Athletes, I think I may have already said that one, but if we have somebody who has a message and is successful in their own right, what we're going to do is take those people, bring them on, extract their hard-earned wisdom, and share that with you so that we can learn from their mistakes and learn from them what makes them tick and what makes them a success. So this is your Friday field notes, some thoughts that I have from throughout the week. I do want to mention something that I don't normally talk about a whole lot. We have a sister organization. It's called the Revitalized Womanhood. And it's got a podcast. Gina Trimmer runs it. And she's got the sisterhood, which is similar to our exclusive brotherhood, the Iron Council. So I know we have a lot of men who obviously listen to this podcast. But one thing I get a lot from those men is looking for something for their wife or their girlfriend, significant other. And often I'm asked, and I just had a comment on YouTube with this question, is where is the women's equivalent of what we're doing here with Order of Man? And that is Revitalized Womanhood. So I think it's beneficial to help your wife find something similar to what we're doing here. Obviously, men and women communicate differently, and it's great that we can work together, and we should want to work with our spouses. But there's also a need for men to be with men, to learn from, to grow with, to be accountable to. And it's also true that women need that sisterhood. They need that camaraderie. They need that accountability. They need to be able to have some conversations amongst themselves so that we come back together, a more whole, more complete, realized version of our potential. And then we can serve each other and walk forward how we want to walk in life. So if you want to check that out, or if you're a woman who's listening, make sure to check it out at revitalizedwomanhood.com. They've got a podcast. Gina Trimmer does a fantastic job with it. And I think it'd be in the woman in your life's best interest to check it out and see what it's all about. So that's my share with you today. Guys, I do want to talk about something that gets brought up quite often, and we're addressing this in our exclusive brotherhood, the Iron Council, which is the men's iteration and version. And for the month of June, we're talking about leadership under crisis. And specifically, we're studying Ernest Shackleton's ill-fated adventure across the Antarctic. And we're talking about leading through disaster. So I thought I'd kick that off by doing a podcast with regards to leading by example, because we all have scenarios and situations where we've had leaders who don't lead by example. They try to manage, they try to coerce and manipulate and strong arm us into doing things, but we would never follow that person voluntarily. And as a man, I believe it's part of our job to lead ourselves first and foremost, and then to lead the people that we care about, our people, as I often say. That's your family, friends, colleagues, coworkers, neighbors, community members, those types of people. So we're going to address leading by example, because too often we don't see men leading by example. They're telling others what to do, but they're not willing to do it themselves. And look, I'm not here to tell you that I have never done that. Certainly there's been aspects of my life, specifically over the past year, where I've fallen short in this department. And it's no wonder that when that reality is presented, that you lose the ability to influence and have some authority in people's lives. But we want that. We want to be doing right by them, and we want to be serving them. And isn't that what leadership is? It's a level of service. You're there to serve those people, not serve yourself, not prop yourself up or put yourself on a pedestal you don't belong, but to help others get to a place they could not have imagined going on their own. And that requires you to lead by example. So let's break this down. Number one is we do have to be humble. Now, a lot of people will say vulnerability, authentic, and I'm trying to expand my horizon, my understanding of what those words mean, but I choose to encompass this all in humility. If you're arrogant, if you have an ego, if you're prideful, excessive pride, you're not being humble, and therefore you're not going to share your shortcomings, your deficiencies, the areas that you need improvement on. And if you're not willing to do that because you think you have it all figured out, or you've managed to pull the wool over your eyes long enough to make you think that you have it figured out, then you can't grow. And if you can't grow, you can't help other people grow. You've gone stagnant. You've gone cold. You become complacent, and that's no way to lead people. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to take a deep inventory if we want to lead by example, a deep inventory of our own lives in some key areas, not every aspect of our lives, but in some key areas that are going to naturally spill over into other areas of our life. So number one is just getting right with ourselves. And specifically, I'm talking about your spiritual, your mental, your emotional health. How is that? Are you quick to anger? Are you quick to judgment? Are you a pessimist? You always see problems, but not solutions. Are you dragging other people down? Do you not really realize what your purpose of being on this world is? Do you not have a mission and something that you can focus on? Are you not focused? Are you easily distracted? These are all mental, spiritual, and emotional deficiencies that need to be worked on and need to be shored up. Now, I might not get into the weeds today of how to do that because we've been talking for 8 years about how to do that. I just want to give you a 30,000 foot overview on some things that you should be considering. And we also do this in our Iron Council. And this is one of what we call the quadrants, is the calibration quadrant, getting right with yourself physically, mentally, not physically, spiritual, mental, and emotional. The next is the relationships that you have with others. So this is your connection quadrant. Do you have a deep and meaningful connection with your significant other? Do you have a deep and meaningful connection with your kids? Are you able to influence other people to do good things, to move the needle in their own lives? What's the relationship you have with your colleagues and coworkers? Do you know your neighbors? Do you know your friends? Do you have a band of brothers? Are these things important to you? And if you do have those things, how would you measure the health of the relationship you have, for example, with your spouse? Or how would you measure the strength of the relationship that you have with your kids? And be honest. This is an honest assessment because this is the time where you need to be humble. Okay, number 3, so that's the connection quadrant. Number 3, condition, physical health. I'm talking about strength, endurance, cardiovascular strength, sleep, recovery, nutrition, all of these things that we know without a shadow of a doubt that are going to make us better, more capable, stronger men. I saw a gentleman walk into the convenience store today, and he was a very large man. And I'm not saying that in a healthy way. He was a very large man. And I try not to be judgmental. I don't know what he has going on in his life. I don't know if there's some sort of medical condition or mental health issue that he's dealing with. I don't know. So I'm not trying to be judgmental. It's something I'm working on. Again, humility. But what I do know is that if that guy was 100 pounds less, he would live a much more fulfilled life than he is now. Again, not my place to judge because I don't know his full story, but I know that in my life, I've been overweight, up to 50 pounds overweight. And I can tell you unequivocally that being lighter, leaner, stronger, healthier leads to a better life. You're more capable of leading people. You're more capable of the energy required to sustain growth and focus towards desired objectives. You're able to get people out of situations that you wouldn't normally be able to. It's always better. So you need to take a look at it. Jump on the scale tonight. I know you don't want to. I get it. You don't want to quantify how bad it's actually gotten. But if you want to lead by example, you need to exhibit some humility, which means that you need to know where you're starting from. It's not the end point. It's just the start point. That's the condition quadrant. And the last is your contribution quadrant. And this is you being a valuable member of society. This might pertain to voluntary service. This might pertain to your career aspirations, but it's the way that we add value and enrich other people's lives for the betterment of their lives and the betterment of society as a whole. People have given to you. Hopefully this podcast has been valuable to you. Your parents hopefully have served you. There's been friends in your life who have cared about you. And if we really want to be the kind of men we're capable of being, then it is necessary, 100% and completely necessary, that we figure out how to be men of value. So that's the contribution quadrant. Guys, the more you focus on this, the more humble you're going to be because you're always going to be working on improving something. And the other side of this is that we need to be able to articulate our own struggles and our own challenges with other people. Yes, even the people that you're trying to lead. There is a common misconception that as a leader, you should not be talking about some of these things. And yes, there's a time and a place where you should not, but you should be talking with people about where you fall short. You should be talking about where you've failed with your people. And if you do that, you're going to build influence with them because they're going to see a man who not only failed in that way, but figured out a way to overcome it. And that's inspiring. That's motivating to people. All of us have a BS meter, and that BS meter gets sent more and more sensitive every single day. the more we're introduced to BS, the more we acknowledge that there's more and more BS in the world. It's set to high, it's set to sensitive. Okay, so you can't be that guy. You can't be the guy who's pretending like his crap don't stink and he's walking around with his chest puffed out and it's a lot of false bravado, hoping and praying that somebody doesn't ever figure you out and you can actually get them to do what you want them to do. It doesn't work. Okay, now people are looking for confidence, sure, but confidence is earned, as I talked about in a podcast about 2 to 3 weeks ago. Confidence is earned through the display or the practice of taking courage or exhibiting courage, taking decisive action, making bold choices, taking courageous risks. The more you do that, the more confidence you're going to earn, and you won't feel the need to fake anybody out. You can honestly talk about where you're short without attaching it to your worth. And isn't that what we do? Man, I failed in this one aspect of life, so I'm a horrible human being. No, you're not a horrible human being. You just fell short in that aspect of life. And people who are humble, men who are humble, are willing to acknowledge where they fall short without thinking that they're a pile of garbage, that they still do have worth, that there's unlocked potential inside of them to do something wonderful and great. And I would suggest to you that if you can't do that, if you can only look at your problems and associate and tie that into your sense of worth, then you're going to have a really, really difficult time being humble. And if you have a difficult time being humble, you're going to have a very, very difficult time leading other people. So acknowledge your deficiencies, recognize your shortcomings, pour over and analyze where you struggle, and be honest and open with that, about that with other people, so all of you can learn together. Number 2 is we must accept the weight of leadership. It's not something to be taken casually. It's not something to be taken flippantly. It's not just some title that you earn that has no weight or significance other than maybe a few thousand extra dollars a year on your paycheck. That's not what it is. Guys, we are called to be leaders. You have a family. You have a neighborhood. You have community members. You have boys maybe that you're coaching on their baseball team. You have people that are working for you. That's heavy, and it should be heavy. And you should carry it like the weight that it is. And so we don't take rocks out of the backpack because we can't handle the leadership role that we serve or have a desire to serve. No, we go out and we train and we exercise and we build muscle and we develop the capacity to carry as many rocks as possible, not at our own expense. Because if you make it at your own expense and you get, for example, if we're using the hiking metaphor, you get dehydrated and you go down, you're not going to serve anybody. So yes, you still have to take care of yourself. And that's part of what I talked about earlier with humility, but also you need to be able to lead and you need to recognize that it's a heavy, heavy burden at times. We did an event probably 2.5 to 3 years ago, and we titled it or had the motto as bear the burden, bear the burden, bear the burden of responsibility that comes with leadership. And I'll tell you why, because it's rewarding. Well, before that, even it's the right thing to do. And doing the right thing is intrinsically and inherently valuable. But outside of that, it feels good. You will be rewarded through dopamine and other hormones injected and infused in your body to reinforce the idea that you should be leading, that you should be taking care of other people, that you should be adding value to their life. Can you imagine what that would look like if every turn where you ran into people at the grocery store and they listened to your podcast, or, maybe you ran into them in the parking lot of the grocery store and you jump started their car because their battery died. Like, these are all things that we can do to serve other people and lead effectively, to make their day better, to make their lives better, but also to make your life better. But recognize it for what it is. It's not something to be taken casually. It's not just something that comes and goes. Somebody bestowed that upon you. You either given that authority through some other authority like work promotion, or somebody decided to give you their influence. They gifted that to you. Treat it with the reverence that it deserves. I haven't always done this. When people trust me or they give me their influence, I haven't always treated that with the respect that it deserves. But it does deserve respect. Somebody bestowed that leadership upon you, and you better realize that they did it for a reason. And now it's your responsibility to do everything that you can to train yourself and make yourself capable of leading them well. Number three, guys, and I think we kind of already hit on this, so maybe I'm just beating a dead horse, is to evaluate your own performance. But you have to do it honestly. So we talked about the four quadrants that you need to address, but you should also be doing this after performances. And when I say performances, what I'm talking about in this context is anytime you have an interaction, a sale, a sales call, a meeting, a conversation, a podcast, an email that you sent out, anytime that you're interacting with other people, you want to evaluate your performance. How did I do? What could I have done differently? What did I learn from that experience? Where did I struggle? What areas can I shore up to ensure that what we were trying to get done actually gets done the next time? And that's the last question is, what am I going to be doing better next time in this situation? So if you give a presentation, for example, to a group of employees, or maybe there's 500 or 1,000 or 10,000 people you're talking to from the stage, you should evaluate that, because you can't lead people well unless you're willing to see that maybe you're not doing as good a job as you could. And isn't that all of us? Like, can't all of us in every department do better than we currently are? And yet, too often, I've done it too, we ask people to do things that we're not willing to do ourselves. That's not treating people's influence they've gifted you with the respect and reverence it deserves. And this has been valuable for me because as I'm tempted at times to slack off, to be lazy, to engage in behavior that isn't really going to serve me or anybody else well, I can remember the weight of leadership, and then I can use that to evaluate what I'm about to do. Should I do this thing? Should I engage in this activity? Should I engage in this conversation? Should I behave this way? Let me do this litmus test. Yes, I'm trying to serve other people. It's important. Okay, no, I shouldn't. Or yes, I should. But always look at it and ask yourself, is this the behavior that is in alignment with the kind of leader that you'd want to be? And also in the alignment with the kind of leader you would follow. Would you follow you, is a term I've heard. If you were your own boss, and we are in a lot of ways, but for the sake of this, you're hired with a company and it's a guy that looks like you, that talks like you, that acts like you, that behaves like you, he is your clone. Would you follow that guy? And if you would, why? That's important to know. And if you wouldn't, we need to pull that out. We need to extract that and figure out what's going on right there, because that's why possibly people aren't following you. Number four is, it's very important. And I found this out when I started the podcast. I used to believe that leaders it was an I type mentality. Like, I'm the leader, I'm the boss, I'm the best at this thing. Listen to me, my way or the highway, do it my way. This is the best way. And it was very me centric, and it was less focused on other people. And you can tell when somebody's like this. Listen to their language. Just listen to their language. And as a general rule of thumb, you should be careful, very, very careful in following people who use the terms I, me, mine a lot, because they're self-focused. It's all about them, and it's not about the other party. But a great leader, listen to their language. Us, we, our. Those are leaders that I want to follow. If I knew nothing else about a leader, if he refused to use inclusive language and instead isolation type language and put himself on an island above and beyond what anybody else was on, that's a red flag for me. On the other hand, if I hear a leader who uses inclusive language, we, us, our, the team, we're doing this together, we got this, or when they're congratulating people, the only time it doesn't apply is when you're giving credit to other people for failures. That's the only time it doesn't apply. That should not be a we and us and our. That should be a me, mine, I. I failed. I dropped the ball. I didn't get you the tools you needed. I didn't get you the support you needed. I didn't realize that it would take longer than it actually did, or that the timetable would be longer than I initially realized. When a leader uses I, me, and mine in that context, that's a green flag. So guys, use this us mentality. You're on a team. It's not you and other people against the world. It's your family or your business or your team. And the more you can create a culture and foster that culture of community and belonging and team, the more likely people are going to follow you for the long haul. It's always us, we, and ours. Number 5, guys, continual improvement. Look, people don't expect you to be perfect. They don't. Your wife doesn't expect you to be perfect. She'd like it, but she's not unrealistic. She knows you're not perfect. She knows there are going to be challenges. She knows you probably better than you know you in a lot of ways. She knows when you're lazy. She knows when you're mad. She knows when you're glad. She knows when you don't want to do something. She knows when you do want to do something. She knows. You got to have this continual level of improvement. You got to figure out ways to continue to get better. You're not going to get perfect. Just like I said, she doesn't know, or she knows that you're not perfect, but you can improve. You can be fitter today than you were yesterday. You can have a little more money in the bank account today than you did yesterday. You can react to a challenging situation at work today a little differently than maybe you did yesterday. And that's all we're asking. That's all you should be asking for yourself. It's not that you're going to be perfect today. It's that you're going to get better and you're going to improve and you're going to do after action reviews and you're going to be humble and you're going to look at all these things that we've already talked about and you're going to use that as fuel to improve your life better every single day. And by the way, when you mess up, that's an opportunity for improvement. If you own it, you acknowledge it, you ask yourself how you can fix it. You don't convince people that you're going to fix it. You just fix it and you do it consistently. And that rebuilds the trust that you have with other people. That's what leaders do. And so when it comes to the us mentality I talked about a minute ago, have hope that you don't have to have it figured out and you don't need to put yourself somewhere than your followers are. Again, that could be your family, friends, colleagues, coworkers, whoever. But if you say, hey, let's do this together. Instead of me being out front leading you, let's do it together, shoulder to shoulder. Let's go work towards that objective. Let's go to the gym. Let's have that conversation. Let's do that thing. Doing it together is always better. You guys, the last point I have for you today is making sure that you have effective communication with regards to leading by example. Because frankly, it's not enough just to say you're doing something. You actually, in a lot of instances and cases, you actually have to articulate it, especially with kids. You might be doing everything right, and they're formulating the wrong connections because they're kids, and adults do this as well, and you're not communicating it effectively. It's okay. You're not bragging. It's one thing you don't want to do, but you can tell people what you're doing, and you can tell people what is important because you want to be influential. And nobody else is going to market you. Nobody else is going to pitch you. So have some faith in yourself and give yourself some credit that you're worthy of following. And then making sure that you're articulating that. Another way that we need to make sure that we're communicating effectively is we're not going to beat people down. We're not going to hurt them. We're not going to undermine them. We're not going to devalue them. Even if they make a mistake. Yeah. Maybe they cost your business a couple $100, a couple $1,000. Are they a good employee? Yeah. Other than that, okay. So give them the benefit of the doubt. What happened? You know, I have people in my life, maybe it was my ex-wife or close business associates or people in my life who maybe let me down for a specific reason. And I can't really think of a reason right offhand, but I was disappointed in their own performance. And I would say I would really get after those people. But what was interesting is I realized I didn't need to because they were already beating themselves up, number one. And number two, this was so out of the ordinary for them that it was a bit of an anomaly. And instead of getting after them for failing or for messing up or doing something that I didn't like, maybe what I should have done instead was say, hey, what happened? Everything okay? I remember one time I had this employee. This was when I was in retail management. And she called me and said that she couldn't make it into work. And I was so bent out of shape. The schedule was all out of whack. And maybe I was having a bad day or whatever it might have been. And she's a great employee, by the way. And she said, I can't make it into work today. And I reamed her for it. It's like, well, why? You need to be here on the schedule. And now you need to find somebody else. And I can't believe you're leaving us hanging high and dry. And I really laid into her. And then I asked her, what do you have that's like more important than what we're doing here? Or grandma died. And what an asshole I was because I decided to jump down her throat instead of actually exhibiting some care and empathy towards her because it was so far removed from her current and usual behavior. That was ineffective communication. And guess what I did? I undermined the relationship that we had. I undermined her performance at work. And I undermined my own leadership and influence ability with her. Now it can be rebuilt. In fact, next week we have a podcast with Dr. Henry Cloud, who a lot of you know, very popular. So Dr. Henry Cloud, he's got a new book called Trust. And he talks a lot about how you can build trust, how you can rebuild it, when to give it, when not to give it. It's a really, really important conversation. So you can rebuild it, but we don't want to rebuild it. We don't want to have to take one step forward and two steps back. We want to always be moving forward. So we communicate. I think the first rule of communication is empathy. It's empathy. It's being able to look at an audience or a person and try to figure out, is this person enjoying their time? Are they getting what they need from this conversation? Am I being a good listener? Am I showing that I do care about them? And you actually do have to care. You can't fake that one. Do I care about them? Do I want to hear about what makes them tick? Am I curious about them and their life? And again, whether that's a party of one or a party of 10,000, your ability to be empathetic in your communication style is what's going to set you apart as a leader. I was not empathetic on that phone call. I was short and angry and not helpful. I had another situation. I wrote about this in the book, The Masculinity Manifesto, where we had this great athlete. He was pitching a baseball game, and he's an incredible athlete. He's a great pitcher. And I brought him in to close out the game, and he struggled. Oh, my goodness. He struggled so hard. He was throwing balls everywhere. And I think he walked a couple of batters and maybe gave up some runs. And I don't remember if we won or lost that game. What I do remember is him almost being in tears because I made him feel like dog shit for doing a poor job. And instead of communicating with him that way and beating him down, what I should have done is I should have called a timeout, and I walked out there and I put my arm around him and I said, man, what's going on? You all right? Everything good? Had a hard day? You stressed? Nervous? It's a big game. What's going on? Talk to me. And granted, we only have a little bit of time when you're on the mound doing that, but there's definitely a more empathetic way to do it. And I think had I done that, I don't know if his performance would have changed immediately, but it was like sixth, seventh grade baseball. It's so unimportant in the grand scheme of things. But you know what? He would have walked away from that with a new level of respect and trust between him and I, which would improve his life. It would improve his season with me as his coach, and it would make him better. This is something that we don't talk about a lot as men, being empathetic, because we think it's feminine. Like being kind and empathetic and understanding and even feeling for people is not feminine. It's not exclusively feminine. This is what good leaders do. They know their people. They care about their people. They want to see them win. When they don't, they want to figure out why and what they can do to help them improve. And that's all effective communication. Guys, I really think we can do a better job here. And when I say we, because that was point number 4 is the us mentality, I'm talking about me too. And I really do hope that you've heard it in the podcast over the past 6 to 8 to 9 months. I hope that you've heard a change in my voice. I hope that you've seen that I care about what we're doing here, and I didn't always communicate it as effectively as I otherwise could have. Anger, bitterness, frustration, contention or animosity, judgment towards others. I want to be empathetic. I want to be kind. I want to help people. I want to serve people. And we do that by leading by example. So let's recap here. Number 1, being humble. Talked a little bit about vulnerability. Talked a little bit about being courageous and bold and taking actions and exhibiting courage. Number 2 is recognizing the weight of leadership, that it's not just some passive thing that is insignificant. It is significant. It's very, very important. Number 3 is evaluating your own performance and what you can do to shore it up. Number 4 is the us mentality versus the me and mine and my. Me and mine and my, yes, mentality. And I. It's the us, we, our mentality. Number 5, continual improvement in your life. No one's perfect. No one expects you to be perfect. But the people who are following you do expect you to improve every day. And number 6 is effective communication with the key foundational trait of empathy. Okay? Let me know, guys. If you have more thoughts, more considerations, and more ideas about how to lead by example, please let me know what they are so we can all share and work together. A couple of things as we part today. Number 1, check out our exclusive brotherhood, the Iron Council. It opens up mid-June. So that's what, a week and a half, 2 weeks tops, mid-June. And then also for those ladies who are listening and for the men who have ladies in their lives that are looking for something similar to what we're doing here, then check out revitalizedwomanhood.com, including her podcast and her, I was going to say brotherhood. It's not a brotherhood. It's her sisterhood. It's the ladies getting together. It's valuable, just as valuable as the Iron Council for men. All right, guys, that's all we've got. Let's go out there, take action, and become the man we are meant to be.